Hey guys, this is Jeff Newton from the writer's cabin. We have a lot of people coming today, so I've got to keep doing chores because it's going to be a big storm up here tonight. It's going to probably be 12 inches of snow at least, and so I got some wood to split for the house in case it gets too cold. But I do want to talk to you about this CBS situation. I've been putting it off for a week or so, and so here's the thing. I think 60 Minutes is in real trouble. Barry Weiss, it's been reported, Barry Weiss, the editor-in-chief of CBS News, who took over when Paramount Sky Dance took over CBS News and Paramount. Well, she came in, she's very super conservative. She's a Trumpite, that's the best I can say. And all the people she's brought in with her are completely unqualified. The evening news has lost 20% of its viewership in the first week she was on the air. That's an astronomical number. Astronomical. The problem is I don't give a shit too much about CBS Evening News. Evening news programs are going to go away, and there's a lot of new breaking news organizations starting up, like Zateo and things like that, where you can get your news. BBC will always be around. NPR hopefully will always be around. These evening news programs are dinosaurs. But the worst she creates her problems at 60 Minutes. And at 60 Minutes, where she now runs the show, she, if you remember correctly, she took the story on CCOT, the El Salvadorian prison, off the air. A Sharon Alfonsi story. He's a great correspondent who I know very well. Took it off the air because she thought it wasn't ready, which was pretty much Trump speak for they didn't want it on the air at all. And so she came in and she pulled it and said it'll run when the reporting is better, which is amazing considering she's never done broadcast journalism in her life. And as far as we can tell, she has no reporting experience. She's an opinion writer. She worked on opinion pieces for the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch's news organization, and all the stories coming out about how 60 Minutes needs help are coming out of the New York Post, also run by Rupert Murdoch. So they're calling these people and leaking this stuff to try to make 60 Minutes look bad. Can you imagine a franchise that's as old as I am, the number one news magazine in history, and she came in and said, she was not very specific at all. She said, there's a reason Americans are losing trust in the media. And my argument has always been, they're not losing trust in 60 Minutes. They never lost trust in 60 Minutes. They lost trust in the media because of organizations like Fox. She's trying to turn it into one. Her and David Ellison, who's the chairman or CEO or whatever of Paramount Skydance, the son of Larry Ellison. David Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle. These are the rich billionaires who own the island, 87,000 acres or some shit like that out in Hawaii. Like unbelievably wealthy people who give tens of billions of dollars to Republican causes. They're trying to turn this into another Fox News. And it's happening all across the media. You look at, very conservative politics of Facebook, getting rid of their fact checkers, right? Nobody wants facts checked, but you want to stop people from violating community standards by saying things like guns and rape and things like that. Grape and pew-pews. In the meantime, they are organizing an effort collectively to buy up all the news organizations. They've got, X now, right? Which used to be Twitter, owned by Elon Musk. We all know where his politics stand, right? Doge and all that shit working for the White House. Then you've got the merger that could be happening here between any number of players, including Ellison and Time Warner, which owns CNN. They want to turn all these organizations into little Fox Newses. Why would you need state media like Pravda in Russia when you could just have all your billionaires buy the companies? That's exactly what's happening. And the problem is, there will be all sorts of new media organizations coming out and supporting, independent reporting, right? They're coming. The problem is, when they are coming out, it takes a lot of money and time to get these things organized. So, people get fired for having opinions on the air most of the time, but apparently at CBS News, it's becoming the norm. Barry Weiss wants to come in and start editing 60 Minutes, right? She has no background experience whatsoever. She has this guy working for her as her deputy. She worked with him on opinion pieces at the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, where she was an editor. Again, opinion writing mostly and editing. Let me just show you a picture of this guy. This guy right here, Adam Rubenstein. See this guy? Hope you can see his picture. Does he look like somebody that's ready to run a news organization that's the Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow legacy? He's like a little kid. And they had him in a meeting. Sharon Alfonsi, allegedly, this is in the New York Post. Can't believe I'm having to quote them, but apparently all the stories are being leaked to them. They had Sharon Alfonsi in a meeting to try to discuss the editing of this CCOT piece that they pulled off the air, okay? And when they had her in there, she said to him, you're not my producer. I'm not answering to you. And everybody's like, well, he's her boss, and so is Bari Weiss. Technically, that's true, but 60 Minutes has never been run that way. It's always been run by the executive producer, who's Tanya fucking Simon, the daughter of Bob Simon, who's a friend of mine I've known for many years. I don't talk to these people anymore right now because I don't want to put them in the position of having to answer to Bari Weiss, but I don't need to talk to Tanya Simon or Sharon Alfonsi right now. I have them on my phone. I can call them if I want to. I'm not going to do that because I don't want it coming out later that they were talking to me about this shit. But I don't need to because I work there and I know what they're going through. They don't talk to people externally and let them edit their pieces because they've been doing it right for 58 fucking years. And they don't need some person who's never been in the news business or in broadcast news, who's never done real journalism, coming in and telling them how to put a piece together. Bari Weiss was like, Americans are losing trust in the media. And as I said, not in 60 Minutes, they're not. But here's the thing. Since she took over, evening news, viewership, the first week she came in and fucked up that broadcast, 20 to 25% loss in their audience in 4 or 5 days. And now 60 Minutes had the CCOT piece, they finally aired it because she was complaining that the administration didn't have an opportunity to say what it needed to about this El Salvadorian prison. And, well, so they held it. And guess what? They had an opportunity for another month to come in and have Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem or Tom Homan or any of those people comment on CCOT and the El Salvadorian prison that they sent these Venezuelans to. And guess what they didn't do in the last month? They didn't go on the air with 60 Minutes. They wouldn't. And I told you they wouldn't because they're not interested in truth. Because if you sit down with Sharon Alfonsi or Scott Pelley or any of those people to talk about the truth of that prison, they're going to get roasted. And they know it. And they don't want to do that. So instead, they went back to this old press release that they had that talked about, but why aren't you looking at people that are, criminals instead of criticizing the administration? Well, here's the deal. The fact is that you had an opportunity, you whined about it, and Bari Weiss whined about it to get you in front of the camera to explain all that stuff, and you wouldn't do it. Instead, a piece of paper. That's what you got for waiting another month, a piece of paper with this press release on it explaining their position. And honestly, it's inadequate. And so you've held up that broadcast, but now the worst damage has been done because people like me who used to work there no longer trust the broadcast, not because the people who work there, because those people are pushing like crazy. Sharon Alfonsi, again, said to this punk deputy editor, you're not going to be my producer. You're not my producer, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And they're like, oh, she's insubordinate. No, she's not. She's a fucking professional, and he's a child. He doesn't know what he's doing, just like Bari Weiss doesn't know what she's doing. So here's the numbers. 60 Minutes when I was there, if you had a 13 or 14 million people watching the show that night, people were like, oh, damn, you had 13 million. Damn. Because they're used to 15, 17, 20 million people watching it. Here's what they got when the CCOT piece finally aired, when everybody realized that Bari Weiss had her hands all over it. 4.9 million people. The week before, the year before, the exact same time frame, they had 8.2 million people. So that tells you, if they don't trust 60 Minutes anymore, it's not because 60 Minutes was doing bad journalism. It's because she put her fucking hands all over the broadcast. And now she's responsible for it. And guess who has to have weekly meetings for the first time in history with the executive, with Bari Weiss, the editor-in-chief, across the street who doesn't run the broadcast? Tanya Simon now has to allegedly have Monday morning meetings with this person and talk about what's coming up on the broadcast because she wants control of everything. And she's ruining that broadcast. Now, here's the most important thing. I'm talking to friends of mine that were at 60 Minutes. And here's what they say. It's an argument at this point as to what 60 should do. A lot of people think these guys should walk. They should just quit and walk out. And then other people are like, no, they're trying to save the broadcast. I don't know what to do. frankly, I think the broadcast is over with. As much as I love the people that work there, I don't think they're going to recover from this person. And I don't think the Ellison family, David Ellison and Skydance, is going to sell CBS anytime soon. They just bought it. So 60 Minutes as a legacy, I think, is over. And I hate to say that because I love a lot of the people that work there, and I hate to put them in that position where they have to criticize me for saying that. But the truth is when her hands are all over that broadcast, she's doing it on behalf of the Trump administration, just like they are with every other legacy network they're trying to get their hands on. So they don't have to have Pravda and state TV. They're going to own all the businesses and turn them into conservative newscasts. And it's terrible for the legacy of 60 Minutes. And all these executives and correspondents from 60 can walk and they can replace them with somebody else, but it'll never be the same again. Or they can stay and try to fix it, but there'll always be a shadow cast over them as to what people were doing to manipulate each story in favor of this administration. And I think that's the horrible reality that we're in right now. People like Scott Pelley, who's a tremendously good correspondent, people like Bill Whitaker, who's another strong correspondent, Sharon Alfonsi, strong correspondent, Leslie Stahl, most of the time is kicking people in the balls, except when it's a story on Israel. Anyways, this is a terrible problem they're in, and I don't think there's a solution out of it. They have now lost the trust of the American people, and it has by no means because of the people that work at 60. I think it's a horrible thing for them to be able to ruin a broadcast that was flying high for the last 58 years, and in less than 2 or 3 months, they've torched its reputation in the eyes of the people who have been watching it for as long as I've been alive. And when Sharon Alfonsi was telling this kid that he was when's the last time you've produced a minute of television? He said, no, I've done that before. I looked this shit up yesterday. He doesn't have broadcast experience. If he does, it's buried way deep in his resume where nobody's proud of it. There's nothing I can find. He was an opinion piece writer. He was criticized at the New York Times for the work that he was doing there. The Wall Street Journal, where he and Bari Weiss became good pals and she trusted him implicitly, is where they made their mark. And that is not broadcast journalism, and it's not journalism at all, really. It's opinion writing. And so I just want to say that I think it's horrible, and I think it's sad. But if they stay around and try to save this broadcast, all they're doing is prolonging the inevitable. This broadcast has a wonderful history that they should walk away from. Because now, every minute that goes by, they're more and more going to be perceived as somebody who can't trust anymore. And that was never the case before this woman came here. Never. No, you might have said like, oh, I didn't like the way they did this or that, but you always knew that they were striving for truth. And now you have no idea. You know that Bari Weiss has speed dialed to people in the White House and will tell them what's on the broadcast and will listen to them when they say jump. They had an interview the other day with their new anchor on the evening news. And when they talked to him after the interview, the Trump administration, Trump and Caroline Leavitt allegedly said to him on tape, you have to run this interview in its entirety. And apparently Caroline Leavitt said, or we'll sue your asses off, something of that nature. And so, the new anchor was like, yeah, we will. And the producer on it was like, yeah, no problem. Really? Now they tell us how to edit pieces now? You're going to allow that? That's what the Soviet Union used to do. That's what North Korea does. That's state-run media. And to allow that to happen, because he rambles, and people don't want to listen to his rambling. So editors must do that and cut out the fat so that they can get to the point. And on a 20-something minute newscast, allowing him to have 13 minutes on just an average news day, that's despicable. And that's where they're going. And they want to do the same thing to 60 Minutes. They want to control everything. And those people, I can promise you, it may sound arrogant, but they don't fucking need her telling them how to put shit on the air. No fucking way. No fucking way. They've got more awards than she could ever dream of having. You can walk around the offices at 60 Minutes, the Correspondents' Row, and walk into some offices, and there's so many Emmy Awards that it looks like it's wallpaper on some offices, okay? I've been there when they've had 29 nominations in a single year, and the whole network has had something like 35. So they had like 3/4 or 80% of the nominations for Emmys. They win Pokes and Peabodys and DuPont Awards and Overseas Press Club Awards, you name it. And nobody else has had such a storied historical background when it comes to doing quality journalism in broadcast journalism. They are the They are the gold standard for what should be done. And she's ruined it. See us on Substack. We have paid subscriptions over there, and you can do free subscriptions as well. We're trying to grow this brand. I got a lot of work to do before the snow comes today. I'm trying not to be angry. Like, follow, and share, and comment, and tell us what you think. And, don't hold back. But bring facts. Because if you just start trolling, I'm going to give you one shot at responding. And if you bring more propaganda to me, I'm going to annihilate you first, and then I'm going to block you. Take care. Thanks a lot, Misfits.